Alright guys, welcome to the video. What we're going to be doing is walking through the parts that we talked about on Monday and Tuesday inside drafting class, kind of the user interface of Fusion 360, and then what the first project is for my software that I want you guys to work on. We're going to cover first where and how to save, second of all how to create a sketch, and then thirdly how to extrude it, and then we'll also get into the user interface. So if you guys will come along with me on this journey. All right, so you can see that I've already logged into the Fusion 360. Remember, if you guys see a subscribe now button up in the upper right hand corner, you're going to want to make sure to go and get your educational license. I have a video attached on how to do that in the process. So you want to make sure to go and do that first and foremost. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to save and what I want you guys to do for your very first step. Okay, when you first load into Fusion 360, you're going to see that it says Untitled up here. So we're going to go, you see this waffle icon. Okay, and you can see over here, this is our landing page. Okay, and you can see these are all of the folders that I've made, created, and have open for me, for myself to utilize. You can see that I have a home button right here. I've pinned my introduction to engineering design. That's my that's what the course that I'm working in. Okay, so I'm pinning it here, and then I can move in. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you're on their home page, and you're going to go new project. Okay, your new project's going to pop up, and you're going to go IED, and then your last name. You'll be able to hit enter, and you'll see that your IED and last name pop up, and then you'll see this option to pin it. Okay, we're going to make sure to pin that folder there. Okay, by pinning it means that it won't get lost within all of the extra stuff that we have down below. And then you want to make sure to jump inside of it. We're going to double click, make sure, and I'm in here with a base folder. Okay, there's nothing in there, so we're going to create a new folder. Okay, and I'm going to go activity 1.2.1. 1.2.2 3D solid modeling. Okay, and they do actually request that, so we have that up. I'm going to double click inside there. So now I've set up where I want to have my folder at, okay, for these first three projects. Remember, these first three projects we're going to be looking at doing these three objects from Project Lead the Way. We have our tall block, we have our triangle, and then we have the cylinder. I can't really rotate the cylinder so you guys can see that, but you have the cylinder, and then we are utilizing our measurements. Okay, the first one that I'm going to create over here is this tall block. I'm going to move this away. Okay, and since I'm now already in my solid modeling folder, I'm going to hit that waffle to bring that away. Okay, and you'll see some options up here for this. Okay, we have our new design. New design brings up in this menu. Okay, electronics design, we're not going to worry about that. Electronics library, we don't need to worry about that. Drawing will eventually come to. New drawing template we're going to work with at a later date. Open, upload. Upload is if we want to bring something that we've already created in maybe another program and upload it into here in order to work on it and manipulate it and see how it works. Okay, we have our save, we have our export. If we need to ever bring something out of Fusion 360, we'll utilize that export. 3D print, we'll actually be utilizing that a lot within the classroom. We're going to be recreating our letters that we made for isometrics. So we're going to learn how to recreate those, and yeah, it should be pretty fun for us to do that. Okay, capture image is currently how you guys are going to be able to turn in your documents. Okay, and then share, you can also share it with me, but I'm not going to worry about that. You can see launch screencast recorder, we're not going to worry about that. Public link, Autodesk Gallery, and then GrabCAD, we're not going to worry about those. And then view, so we can actually adjust and turn off and manipulate our interface up here within this. Okay, We want to make sure that our view cube is on. Our view cube's right there. Our browser's over here. Okay, comments are down below. Text commands, we do want to have text commands on. Hide navigation bar, the navigation bar is down below. And then show data panel, we need to have all that stuff. Okay, so we want to make sure to not mess with this area. But if for some reason you do have like your view cube randomly disappears, you now know within the file view and you can turn it back on, or Control Alt V. Okay, same with documents right here, or a browser right here, and then comments, navigation bar, your timeline down below. I also want to walk through this down here. So these are your quick references for your 3D movement and some of the user interface stuff for here. Okay, so we have our orbit. You can also see that we have another orbit option down there. Currently right now I have constrained orbit, meaning that you're going to rotate around the X, the Y, and then the Z plane you don't see right here, but the Z. Okay, we have a look at option that'll allow us to zoom in to a specific point. We have a pan option to move linearly side to side. We have a zoom in or out depending on how you drag. And then we have a zoom fit that'll fit to the largest object that we have on screen. Okay, and then we also have a zoom window that we can click to. Okay. Down below we have our display settings. Currently right now, for the most part, we don't want to mess with the visual style. Every once in a while we want to edit this, but for currently right now we don't want to worry about this. Okay. Mesh display, face groups, that's perfectly fine. Environment is something that you guys can personalize. Okay. You do have 5 options there. Dark sky, gray room, photo booth, tranquility blue, and infinity pool. I prefer dark sky. It gives me the best contrast and the ability to see what's going on for myself on this screen. Okay. Effects, that's going to be what's showing within the object. You can turn all of those off and on. It really doesn't affect you too much. It might affect the performance, okay? But for the most part, you don't need to really turn those on or off, okay? Object visibility, you're going to want to make sure all of these are checked. Every once in a while, you will want to turn off a couple so you don't accidentally select them. But for the most part, that's what you're going to be working with. Okay, camera. So this is going to be the difference in between a perspective view versus an orthographic. Orthographic is going to keep everything to scale. Okay, you won't have any sort of curve or a fisheye lens on it like a perspective will have. Perspective with ortho faces. It's kind of that combination of both, but preference for me, for the most part, is orthographic. Ground plane offset, we don't need to worry about that. And then enter full screen mode. What that's going to do is that's going to fill up the whole screen, so you won't have this top bar up above, and it won't have your start menu or your start bar down below. Okay, your layout grid lock, snap to grid, those are going to be things that we're looking at right here. So we have our layout grid, we can turn that off, and you'll see that our grid actually turns off completely. Layout grid lock means that it locks into position and it won't move. So this 0 point stays there. Okay, and I'm going to uncheck or check that so I have that kept there. Snap to grid means that when we go to draw, it's going to snap to a specific spot on our grid pending on the increments we set up. And then our grid settings, so we can see it's currently for myself, I prefer adaptive, means that if I zoom out, it's going to zoom out with me and going to adjust. If I zoom in, it's going to move with me and zoom in, and it's going to adjust these squares and what they represent right there. Okay, I can go to fixed, and you can see that the scale changed. So the major grid scaling, I can change that to 1 inch, and you can see that that all changed to it. Okay, I prefer adaptive because it's going to adjust to what my increment measurement is down below. Okay, next thing we're going to go is incremental movement. Okay, that's going to make it to where instead of doing the whole wide range of numbers in between, it is going to cause it to jump. You'll see right now I have it set to 1/4 of an inch. That's also going to dynamically set based off of what these view when we get into the smallest grid. Okay, You can see in there, actually I have it set, I used to have it as a 1/4 of an inch. I now have it set to a 1/16 of an inch, which is our architectural based scale, 1/16 of an inch. It's what's on a tape measure. You can change it to a 1/10 of an inch. Okay, so you go and change that and go 0.1. And then rotational degrees, 5 degrees is okay for me. So either of these works. Okay, so 1/10 of an inch or 5 degrees. Okay, you can set it to adaptive, and it'll adapt based off of the scaling that you have back behind. Okay. Once again, that only turns on if you check mark the incremental movements. Lastly is viewports, multiple views. If you are a person who's used to the 3D design world, you'll become familiar with this. This is your top view. You can see that based off the view cube. You can rotate this around. Your front view, your right side, and then your isometric. Preference for me, I personally like a single view. I can rotate around utilizing my mouse in order to make those movements happen. Okay. We'll talk about the timeline down below. So timeline, as you get more parts and pieces and sketches on there, you'll see it populated. This is your drag bar. You can move it down and line up in between them all. You can utilize also this. So this goes all the way back to the beginning. Okay, this steps one back. This plays, so it'll step up to the next one and kind of increment through. This steps to the next step, so the next one in line, and this jumps all the way to the end. Okay. The last part that I want to hit with user interface is this upper part called the ribbon. So this ribbon up above is based off of the selections that you have, and your tools that are given to you is based off of all of this. Okay. So we have our main design page. Most of our work is going to be built within design. Okay. Every once in a while, we will hop into the renderer. Okay. And then we will also hop into, I think for one of them, we'll utilize, or most of them actually beyond these first couple, we'll utilize the drawing. Okay. The generative design. So this is going into, if you have objects in there and you have a couple of them, okay, and you have a couple of them to look at, what this will do is, you can see that over here. So you have these two, and it's going to create a different standard in between those. Okay. But for the most part, most of our work we're going to be dealing with in the design and the drawing tabs. Okay. On the ribbon itself, you kind of want to start from left to right. Everything that we'll be doing will be generated from a sketch. So you always need to start with a sketch. Then you're going to do one of the three, one of these main options up here. I won't say three because there's lots of different options. One of the first options that you're always going to be dealing with is the generation of how do you create your 3D objects. Okay. You can also see that there are some primitives here too. Okay. There's a box, a cylinder, a sphere, a torus, which is a sphere extruded around, or a circle extruded around a center axial point. Okay, a coil, a pipe, and then if there's any patterning that we need to do or anything like that, mirrors are also there. Thickens we'll get into a little bit, not much. Okay, but for the most part, we'll be dealing with the parts up above. Okay. Modify is once when we have a 3D object set, we'll be needing to modify it. Okay. So these are things that we can actually utilize. So a press pull means that we have a sketch or a face that we need to pull back in a little bit. We can do that. A fillet will round a corner. Okay. A chamfer will angle a corner or a line. Okay. Shells are there to hollow out the insides of something or create it to where it creates a wall. Drafts is our draft angle. It's going to be something that we can then adjust and change. Scale, very rarely will we ever utilize scale. If we do need to scale something, we'll go adjust the original dimensions. Combine is joining two solids that weren't originally there. You can see that it can either join, cut, or intersect. Offset faces means that we're offsetting out, so we're bringing it out from a different face, and you can see that within the example. Replace face, so if we need to adjust a face based off of a pattern or a another extrusion, we can do that. You can see that it changed on the demo, the wave right there. Split face if we need to cut it into two different objects. Split body if we need to cut the body, the physical body, into two different objects. And then a silhouette split, you can see on there and what that does. Okay, so modify, you got to think modify is going to modify the 3D solids we already have. We'll get into assemble, construct, and then inspect, insert, and the select. Select is actually pretty common. We'll be utilizing that the most often. But we'll get into these at a later date. For the most part, the inspect, it's just going to be utilized mostly with the measurement. So if you need to pull a measurement from something, okay? All right, so we're going to first click on our sketch. We're going to go here and we're going to go, okay. So I'm going to first create our tall block. So I'm going to see and look at the faces for the thing that we can create with, okay? Now I'm going to create from the smaller rectangle going up. Okay, if we're looking at our object here, if we're looking at this object right here, I'm going to work on creating this part of it right here, and then I'm going to work on extruding this up, okay? Okay, so let's look at that for right here. So I'm going to select our flat plane, okay, otherwise known as where the top plane would be looking down at the object, okay? And I can utilize some of these tools up here. Similar to before, we got to work with create first, okay, and then we can work with modify later on, okay? Constraints we'll get into at a later date, and then you'll notice inspect, insert, and select are also there too, okay? So we're going to work with this. We're going to draw a line, and we're going to draw this up, and I know the measurements. My width is what we're going to be looking at, and our depth is what we're going to be looking at too. So I'm going to go depth first, and that is showing at 0.5. Okay. We're going to go grab line again. We're able to draw out, and I know that that width is 1.125, or 1 1/8. Okay. Now that I have those two lines drawn, I can draw down, and you'll see if I hover over this, you'll see that green line there. It helps lock in that distance. It's what's known as a projection line, meaning that it's lining up with that origin point, and it's going to make sure to stay in perpendicularity to it. Okay, you can also see on there that this corner right here, as long as I hold it at that 90, we see that 90-degree identifier up in that upper right hand corner of our object too. So we're going to click, and then now I should be able to click back on the original object. You'll see that it has that origin point with the square around. It's specifying the distance. It's giving us our 90-degree. It's also giving our perpendicularity icon down in that bottom corner too. Okay. Now you might question and go, well, why isn't this showing perpendicularity in between all of these other ones? Why is it not showing it here? It's actually showing it there without referencing it. If we were to utilize the constraints, it wouldn't work, because that would mean that it would be over constrained. But it's saying that because of the identifier with this point right here holding vertical to it, means that this also has to be vertical. And since this is perpendicular, this one also has to be perpendicular. So it doesn't need to show that, but we do know that that's confirmed. Okay. So I have my rectangle. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to finish that sketch, and we're going to utilize the extrude. Okay. The extrude is going to take a 2D sketch and give it a height, depth, or thickness. Okay. It's going to supply that thickness. Right now it's as flat as if we drew it on a piece of paper. Okay, but now we're working on actually making it into that 3D object. I'm going to go look at the height. It's 3.5 for our height. You can see that it's shooting it out up there, giving it the height. It's calling it out right there. It's giving us this line right here. You can see on our extrude window over here, it's asking for the profile that we want to extrude. It's already selected it. If I deselect it, you'll see that it goes away. Okay, so I've selected it. Starting plane, profile plane, we want to make sure that it's going from the profile plane. Every once in a while, we'll draw something, and then we'll want it to actually start from a different object, because we'll need it to go from this point to this point. Okay. Directions one-sided. We only want it to go up. I'll show you from two sides. Two sides, we can actually adjust this. So we can set the distances for both sides. But because this is overall height of 3.5, I already have it there. If for some reason we wanted to, we could go 3 and then put that 0.5 down here, and that would still give us the overall height of 3.5. Okay. Or symmetrical, we could do this. Now symmetrical is a little different. Okay. It has two different measurements from there. If we know the center point to the outside edge, we could measure that way. Okay. Or if I wanted to do the overall length, okay, we could do that. Both of those would work. Okay, between the symmetrical versus one-sided, both would work. Okay, but for right now, I'm going to be looking at one-sided. The extent is going to give us a couple options. It's going to have us a distance, which is what we're going to use. If we had another object that we needed to draw up to, we could utilize going to an object. Or if we were extruding it and we needed to remove something, we could use the all function right there. But we're going to deal with distance. So we're at 3.5, and our taper angle is 0. We don't want it to taper in or out. Okay. And in the operation, we want it to create a new body. Okay. We don't want a new component. We want a new body. Okay. And you can see that we have a join, cut, or intersect. Right now we want it to join or create a new body. We want the new body. Okay. So we're going to hit OK. And then there's our extruded tall block. Okay. From this point, I'm going to hit my save button. Okay. And you can see that we're in IED Gencola Activity 122 3D modeling. That's the folder that we made earlier. Okay. And we're going to go and title it Tall Block. I'm going to hit save. And you're going to ask, Mr. G, where did it get saved to? It didn't have me identify a folder. It gets saved to the cloud and it's stored there. So if you guys log into another computer, it should automatically be able to pull up from the waffle. Okay, you can see over here, I have that. I'm ready to pull it up. We're ready to go. New design. You'll see that it created an extra tab up here. Okay, and we're going to work on this triangle. Okay, so remember that everything starts with a sketch. Okay, now the triangle, instead of doing this top down, I'm going to do this front plane. Okay, it's what's known as actually the XZ plane. Okay, because this red line is the X axis, this green line is the Y, and then the blue line that you see kind of overriding it, that's actually the Z. Okay, but we're going to select this plane. Okay, and you'll always notice that I start from this origin point right here. Okay, it's a 0, 0 anchor point. Ideally, you want to start from that anchor point on every object. Okay, so I'm going to select my line and I'm going to draw up. I'm going to go 1.125. Okay, so that's my one line there. I'm going to draw over 1.125. Okay, so those are my two lines for my width and height. Okay, But now, do I need to know the length of this line? No, I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw in from there, and you'll see that all of these lines are still white, okay, meaning that it's fully constrained. You can see it generated the perpendicularity line right there. And we have what's known as the a vertical alignment. You can also have a horizontal alignment, meaning that no matter what, this line's just always going to be going vertical. Anywhere I move it, if I move it off of that, it's always going to be pointing straight up, north, down, north, south, up, down. Okay? I can see that the shading on the inside, meaning that I have a closed object, is there. Okay, I can see that my lines are all white, which means that it's fully constrained. We're going to hit the finish sketch. And now I'm going to work through. I'm going to select my object. See, I deselected it actually. I'm going to select my object, and we're going to give it the extrusion of the depth, which is 1.125. And you can see that it extruded out. I press enter, and there is my triangle. Okay. I'm going to make sure to save this. Small triangle. I'm going to make sure to hit save. You can see small triangle V1. Okay. And I'm going to go file new. And we're going to do our cylinder. And this is going to be our first 3 blocks. It's what gets turned in for our modeling software. Okay. So we're going to go to a sketch. And this one, I'm going to go back to that XY plane. Okay. Looking down on it. And we're going to create our circle. Okay. Now you'll notice the options for a circle. They have a lot of different options. What we're doing is a center diameter, which means that we are locating the center point, and then we are giving the information to the diameter, all the way across from point to point, quadrant to quadrant, all the way across. And for us, it's 1.125. I'm going to press enter. A circle, it doesn't need an extra dimension because we located it on the center point of origin. Okay, we're going to finish the sketch. And we're going to work on extruding that up, and the distance or the height of it is 2.313. Now, what that really probably is 0.3125 because that's that marker for that. They rounded it up to 313. At a later date, we'll talk about machining tolerances and why there's a big cost difference in between 3125 versus 313. Okay, I'm going to put it as 2.3125. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to zoom in so I see that. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go CYLINDER for cylinder. Okay, we're going to see that change up here. Should be going to version 1. Okay. And from this point on, I have all 3 of my shapes done and ready to turn in. Okay. But I can't save this file to my computer, so I can't give it to Mr. G. What I need to do is I need to go to our File button, and we're going to go and capture the image. Okay, so we're going to just have it do the current document size. Everything else is fine as long as we're zoomed in on it. We're going to go OK. Okay. Now it's going to call it out for what it is. It's going to give us a PNG file. Please leave it as a PNG file. And now if we wanted to save this to the cloud, we could. Okay. But ideally where we're going to save this is we're going to save it to our computer. Okay. Now what I would do is I would go into your documents folder, create a new folder, and call it IED. And I would just give this the name of the activity, ACTIVITY 1.2.2. Okay. And we can call this out as the first 3. Okay. 3D objects. Okay, or we can title it to what we have for our class for the assignment, which I believe is 3D modeling software. I'm checking to make sure. 3D modeling software. I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to hit save. And you'll see that if I browse to that image or browse to that spot, that image will be there. Okay. I'm going to go File, Capture Image. Okay. You can see that it's already saving it to that spot. I'm going to hit save again. Capture image. Save. And now where I would go is I would go and pull up those documents. So I have the documents, I have the date modified. So we're going to go name, and we're going to go IED, activity 121, 3D modeling software. And you can see my 3 images there. And those are ready for you guys to upload to your project. Okay. You should be able to do that at any point, and I hope you guys find this video helpful. At any point, if you guys do need help, I will try to reach out to you guys and make sure you guys know and understand. I can meet for office hours and get those ready for you. But if you guys do need help, shoot me an email, and I'll try to help produce videos to help walk you through it. So, all right, we'll see you guys later. Bye.